Here's the number one mistake that you're making if you're processing with Stripe and PayPal, or really if you're simply with any other processor and it's the only one you're using. If you're doing a lot of volume online, even if you're not, this is true, but for people with bigger volume, it's a bigger risk, is that all of your life as a business owner is tied up in being able to process those credit cards, right? If you can't process a credit card, you're out of business. You can't make a sale, you can't make a rebill, you can't do anything. And the problem is that you're giving all the power to Stripe or PayPal or someone else where they could wake up one morning, and really it's not they, it's the underpaid person in a third world country who's deciding whether or not they should let you keep processing, who got some customer complaint and said, oh, you know what, you're too much of a risk, we're turning you off. It's not a discussion, it's not a, hey, listen, let's have a conversation. It's boom, you're done, you're out of business, good luck. Now you've got to go find another processor, you've got to rebuild. That new processor is going to say to you, well, have you ever had processing turned off? And you're either going to have to lie or tell the truth. Neither choice is really good. So this is a mess and a lot of risk that you could otherwise manage. And Brian's going to tell you how to manage that.
Yeah. I can't tell you, the number of people that, may have been processing for months or years without like a single issue. And they're like, oh, the only guys that have any issues or get shut down or run into that's only if they're doing like super risky stuff or like illegal stuff or shady stuff. And that's simply not the case. Although certainly, yes, if you're selling illegal stuff or doing stuff like really, really like shady and all that, yes, you probably will get shut down a lot faster than if you weren't. But even if you're completely legit, everything seems fine, you can have stuff go wrong and get shut down. I mean, just like literally a couple days ago, I was actually talking with a person that had an account shut down because they had 6 chargebacks that basically popped up kind of out of the blue. And now for a lot of businesses, that doesn't seem like much. I mean, this wasn't a huge business. Sounds like they were basically doing maybe like 10 or 15,000 a month. So not huge, but they normally would get like 0 chargebacks or like, 1 or 2 in a given month. But for whatever reason, they had a little handful of 6 or so. And especially if you're doing like reoccurring income or reoccurring subscriptions, if you have one guy that is paying like a monthly fee and has stayed for 6 months, he can charge back all 6 months of those. And all of a sudden that's 6 basically chargebacks from a single guy. And sometimes some of the places out there like Stripe and PayPal, that they'll get like a little scared on that stuff and say, hey, this is a spike, in these chargebacks or whatever it might be. And they can oftentimes nuke you for that. Or it could be as easy as, hey, here's a person that had an account that was processing basically 10,000 a month for a few years. Then all of a sudden they went from basically 10,000 a month to 50,000. They had a really good month. But normally you'd think they would like that. But some of these places might be like, whoa, wait, that's a little too much now, a little too risky. We don't want you to grow that fast. Or you're a little too risky now because you're higher volume or, whatever it might be. And that's on top of like all the little things that, they might not like something on your site, something with your sales process, something in your niche. There's all sorts of reasons that even if you get initially approved, they might shoot you down later once they look into it more. So you definitely want to keep that in mind. Now, I'm not saying they're horrible services or anything like that. They can be really, really great for a lot of people, but especially when you get into larger volume and you start to basically grow and be a larger business, you definitely want to have at least some kind of a backup in place. So some kind of backup processing, whether it be some additional merchant accounts or at least maybe one other merchant account elsewhere. So if something goes wrong, you're not completely screwed. You still have the ability to process sales. And even more so on the reoccurring side, the kind of scary part there is a lot of guys out there will sometimes literally have millions of dollars a month in subscriptions that they don't have a backup of that in place. So if all of a sudden their main account decides to shut them down, their business is literally gone overnight. They're out millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. But there's stuff that you can do to have essentially backups of that in place. So if something were to happen, whether it be your fault accidentally or something completely out of your control, you wouldn't be completely out of all that right there. And literally with a click of a button, you could be back up and running and save all of those reoccurring subscriptions right there. So if that's something that, you think sounds a bit like your business and finally waking up and thinking, well, that's like, a huge amount of risk, I want to try to eliminate that, make sure to check out the link below right here in the description to get a little more info on that and how we might be able to help you with that there. So Sean, back to you if you have any other last minute thoughts on that.
Yeah, and I also like to ask you, hey, if you love the information we'll be giving you, then, click like and subscribe and we'd appreciate that. Listen, I know that many of you, and because there are billions and billions of dollars getting processed with Stripe and PayPal, think, hey, we've been doing it for a while, or, there haven't been any problems, they haven't asked any questions, everything's fine. And that's the way this system works. The way that they're able to get you started easily is they just approve everybody. Unless, you sign up for an account and you have an obvious red flag, like, you've just been arrested for thievery or fraud or something, then they're going to let you start processing. And they're going to let you do that until you start running some volume. And at that point, they might decide to take a look at your website, and they decide that, hey, you know what? You've got this nice e-commerce website, and oh, by the way, you sell knives. And did you know you can't sell knives? Like a folding knife, camping knife, Swiss Army knife. You can't sell anything that's a weapon on Stripe. So if they catch you selling a weapon, they'll turn off your account. And you say, oh, I'm just going to take the weapons off the website. Well, they don't have a "we fixed the problem" button. They just have turned you off. You're done. That's it. You can't process with them anymore. And you probably never read the 350,000 words that they've written about things you shouldn't do on Stripe, because most of it doesn't apply to you and you don't realize this. Or you start processing and you decide that you want to create a membership, and that membership is rebilling, and Stripe, and probably PayPal as well, but I know for sure that Stripe has a predictive algorithm they've built to decide when accounts are going to become a problem so they can shut them off early. And they literally have a thing where in some cases they've taken clients who've been processing with them only for a week, have started to grow the volume because they're good at advertising and running the business. And Stripe has contacted them and said, hey, we're going to turn you off because our algorithm says that however you're doing your business, it's going to be a problem. So we don't want to process anymore. You're done. Literally within a week, in some cases, you get turned down. Again, as Brian said, we're not saying Stripe or PayPal or anybody else is inherently bad, but you have to realize the risk you take when all of your eggs are in one basket. It's not a safe place to be. It's not a prudent place to be. And you don't want to find out one day you can't process anymore, because if that's the case, you obviously could go get another place to process, but you're going to be out of business in the meantime, not collecting any money. And depending upon your contacts and your technical skill or your technical team, it could be a week, it might be a month before you're back up and running. And that truly sucks. And then the other thing, again, is that you're going to lose access to your data in many cases if you get cut off. You want to be super careful that you are keeping copies of all your customer data. If it's sitting in an account that you get blocked from and you can't download all of your contact information for your customers, that really sucks. And you don't want to be in that position either. And also, as Brian mentioned, I think about recurring billing, when you're rebilling people, sometimes if you lose your merchant processing for that account that rebills people, you don't want to lose all that credit card data where you can rebill people because it's your company. You can still bill them in a separate, different merchant account, but you have to actually have the data to be able to do that. If you don't have that, again, you're screwed. So this is why we say this is the number one mistake that people make in processing with Stripe and PayPal, because if this is what you're doing and you're doing any volume at all, you're taking a big risk that you are only going to recognize either because you're listening to us today and paying attention and taking our suggestion to eliminate that risk or manage that risk, or you find out when your account's turned off. And if you don't think people will turn off your account, just go search Google for things like, Stripe account canceled, Stripe account terminated, PayPal froze my account, froze my funds. That's the other thing with PayPal. If you leave your money in PayPal because you're like, hey, we're collecting money, we're just leaving it in PayPal, I don't need it anywhere right now, and PayPal decides to turn off your processing, they'll also freeze those funds. 3 months, 6 months, a year, depends upon the level of concern that their fraud detection department has. Doesn't mean you did anything wrong. Doesn't mean you won't get your money. It means you're not getting today or tomorrow or anytime soon. So please be prudent, protect yourself, and hopefully this has been helpful for you. And if so, we invite you to check out our other videos because we've got a lot of other great information we're excited to share with you and help you in your journey to building a bigger, better, more profitable business.